Welcome back, kids. We continue our discussion on gaseous exchange. This time we move on to 7.3 gaseous exchange in plants. In the syllabus, we are going to learn to describe the structure and function of stomata. I'll start with structure. This is an image of the leaf using a high power microscope. These cells here are the epidermis cells of the leaf, and over here you see the stomata. Stomata is actually made up of two gut cells, and you see the center here is the stomatal pore. So now let's go into the details of the structure of gut cell. The epidermal cells of the leaf are rectangular. The gut cells, however, are kidney shaped. This structure gives the cell a concave appearance, and on one side there is an open space. How does the gut cell take this shape? We see the reason is due to the uneven distribution of the cell wall. Normally, plant cells have a regular width of cell wall. But in the case of gut cells, you find the outer wall is thin, whereas the inner wall is thick. The difference in this thickness causes the concave or kidney structure to form. So, what is the benefit of having this different structure? Let me show you the importance of having the kidney shape. For a gut cell to function as a stomata, it must be a pair. Now imagine if the gut cell was like all epidermis cells, that is rectangle in shape. By being a pair, there is nothing significant in the space between the two cells. But by the gut cell having a kidney shape, when it is turgid, that is full of water, and arranged as a pair, you find that there is an open space in between the cells, which we call the stomatal pore, and in this position we consider the stomata as open. Now when the cell loses water and becomes flaccid, and it comes as a pair, you find that there is no space in between the two cells, and we consider the stomata closed. So you see, by having this concave or kidney shape, the stomata is able to open and close. Next, we look at the cell wall. You find that the cell wall of the gut cells have different elasticity. The outer wall you find is actually elastic, meaning that it can stretch. So you can see it can elongate, causing it to be able to bend outward like this. In comparison, the inner wall of the gut cell, that is this part of the gut cell, is inelastic, meaning that it is unable to stretch. So no matter what happens, the length of the inner cell wall will always remain the same, causing this portion of the gut cell to be always shorter. Now the gut cells also have a large vacuole. The advantage of having a large vacuole is that the cell sap inside the vacuole can influence the osmotic potential of the cell, which will determine whether the cell becomes turgid or flaccid. The next point to discuss about the gut cell is the presence of microfibrils on the cell wall, which are radially arranged. So you see, this is the guard cell. The green here is the cell wall. So the cellulose fibers on the cell walls are arranged radially, as in these black lines. So what happens is, when water diffuses in by osmosis and the hydrostatic pressure or the turgor pressure starts to push onto the cell wall, you find that the presence of these radially arranged microfibrils prevent the cell from expanding, meaning that the cell will not get fatter or rounder. Okay, because these microfibrils are behaving like belts that are stopping the expansion of the cell. But you see, upwards, from bottom to up, there are no cellulose microfibrils. So when the turgor pressure pushes, you find that the cell can actually elongate, okay, and become longer. So this is actually good for the leaf. Next point we look at is the presence of the organelle chloroplast in the cytoplasm of the guard cell. Chloroplast will enable photosynthesis to occur in daytime. Through photosynthesis, glucose or sucrose will be synthesized and stored in the large central vacuole, and this will then increase the osmotic potential of the cell, causing the cell to either become turgid or flaccid. Now that we've completed discussing parts of the guard cell in detail, I'm sure you are able to label this diagram accurately. Starting with the outer cell wall, which is thinner and more elastic than the inner cell wall, which is inelastic and thicker. Then you have the plasma membrane surrounding the cytoplasm, which contains both the nucleus as well as the chloroplast. There is also a central vacuole which can control the osmotic pressure of the cell, and depending on whether the cell is turgid or flaccid, we find that a stomatal pore can form. So now we have completed describing the structure of the stomata. We'll move on to the function. Stomata's main function is of course for gaseous exchange. We find that the stomatal pore will enable diffusion of oxygen into the leaf for the purpose of respiration. At the same time, it can also permit carbon dioxide to diffuse in for photosynthesis. Likewise, depending on which process is happening more efficiently, you find that carbon dioxide can diffuse out as a product of respiration, or oxygen can diffuse out as a product of photosynthesis. Besides being used for gaseous exchange, we find that the stomata is also very important for the process of transpiration, where water will diffuse out in the form of water vapor. The process of transpiration is important to function as a method of cooling the plant, as well as to enable water transport from root to leaf. Along with that, minerals also are transported up the plant. We find that the presence of water in the xylem of the plant as well as into the cytoplasm of the cells will help to function as support for mainly herbaceous plants, and of course provide cell turgidity. So these are the functions of stomata. With that, we complete 7.3a. Until my next video, goodbye and see you soon.